All right, so for my first interview, I will be interviewing Kyle Harrison. Kyle Harrison is my former manager at Eaton Corporation, and Kyle currently is the business operations manager of the satellite plant for Atlanta for Eaton Corporation. So thank you, Kyle, for hopping on to do this interview. And the first question that I have for Kyle is just kind of starting off, how would you describe your leadership style in a few words?
Um, sure. So, a few words I would say for my leadership style would be collaborative, approachable, and um, and strong on delegation and building organizational capability. I think it's really important to allow every team member to take on some individual tasks and ownership, but to always be a level of support that can provide clear direction and enable them to be successful.
Okay. And just as a follow-up to that, so I know your first managerial position was as a production supervisor a handful of years ago. Then you moved on to managing smaller teams, and now you have a bigger team again currently. How do you feel like your style, if at all, has changed over that period of time?
I think it's gotten much stronger in understanding how to leverage my sphere of influence and it's rather than telling somebody, hey, this is a task that we have to get done and this is what I need you to do, right? Really taking the time to explain the context of why what we're doing is important, why what each individual contributor is bringing to the table to fit into a larger holistic picture and setting that vision of as a team, here's where we need to get to, and here's why it's important. Here's where each individual plays a part in building up that overall picture.
Hmm.
And so I think I've moved from an area of, really adding more context and color into why it's important and why everybody is playing a part in a successful team accomplishment. And then, of course, I think that I think that I've moved a little bit further from on the trust side too, of saying, hey, it's very easy when you're starting out managing people to get to a point where you almost have a tendency to want to micromanage because if you've got too specific of a vision of how you want things done and you're not very clear with your expectations, what you end up doing is maybe putting your hand in the cookie jar or having some checks and balances where you get more involved than what you can or should be getting involved with as a leader of people. I think I've understood now a little bit more that the trust goes both ways, and trust building is a really important facet of leadership in the sense of um, you have to have an understanding and a comfort level to let people do things their own way sometimes, try different things and different avenues of approaching a specific task or goal. And even in some settings, allowing them to fail and learn from it. These are all important considerations, in my opinion, of building organizational capability. And I think I've moved a little bit further away from just how can we accomplish a specific day-to-day task into what's the bigger overall picture of our operational or business needs, and am I setting up the team for long-term success to where if I were to, leave the office today and never come back, is the team set up to be able to own their individual responsibilities long term?
Hmm. So kind of continuing on that, what you just talked about there. So you currently run a multi-million dollar business unit. You have a cross-functional team that you're directly managing day to day, and you're obviously confined to deadlines both commercially and operationally in your current organization. So when you're under pressure and you're behind schedule, what is your strategy or approach for balancing your deadlines and keeping the team on track for those deadlines?
Yeah, I like this question. So I think the biggest things, and I'm gonna tie in a specific scenario too into this. Um, right now, I am managing a team of it's 25 total people, but my direct reports are five total people. So I have a production manager that manages our shop floor staff, and then I also have a supply chain analyst, two engineers that work on product, um, custom engineered to order assemblies, and then a customer service rep. And in this sort of scenario, we were falling behind on our front end milestones for switchboard engineering. And what that ended up doing is it has an effect on the entire rest of the business cycle. We started getting some of our long lead time material late, and we had to do a lot of work expediting with suppliers, and we were missing some milestones, and then ultimately our ship dates, commit dates on some switchboards. But where it all stemmed from was on that front end engineering side, making sure we're meeting all of our milestones 3 months ago, 4 months ago, because that's what ends up impacting, our current month's output when you look at a 16-week order cycle, right?
Mm.
So um, with that particular scenario, we were crunched up against deadlines, like you mentioned. We had to manage out of a scenario that was ultimately cross-functional and fed into multiple different areas of impact. Our supply chain side, our production side, and then ultimately our front end engineering. The steps that I took in that specific scenario was communicated to all affected parties what was happening to us and some understanding of root cause. So I met with our two switchboard engineers first and foremost, and there were some other factors that ultimately contributed to this. And the most important thing that is contextual in this scenario is this switchboard engineering team is working incredibly hard. They are very good to take ownership. And if you give them a task at hand, they will work very hard to get it done. And so I know it wasn't for lack of trying that we got here. And that's where I started setting the stage. Hey, I know it's not for lack of trying. You guys are doing everything that I need you to do when it comes to the accountability and ownership piece, but let's lay the cards out on the table on where we stand right now and where we need to get to. And so we work together to say, hey, so if we track all of our front end milestones, and I had data to support this, I said we're about 119 items behind in terms of our front end milestones, and that's laid out in by job in terms of ordering our long lead material, having an engineering order review, ordering our short lead material, developing an engineering packet for the shop floor team, and then after the order is shipped, uploading our final construction as built drawings into a portal where field sales or customers can access that. And so, of these milestones, we broke down what was the most important things to focus on as a first step. And it was ordering the long lead material. Um, so we broke down, compartmentalized some of these tasks. We together, the three of us, worked on, hey, this is a fair goal to set. We want to see all of our long lead material that we're past due on completed within 1 week. And he said, hey, this is a blitz. This is what we need you to focus on. And in the meantime, we also had a discussion on, hey, what can I do? What can we do as a business to support you just focusing on these priorities? And we found some good opportunities there on isolating the rest of the team from some non-value interrupters. We let the we let our switchboard engineers focus on that first priority and then had a second and third priority broken down on a weekly basis. we communicated to the supply chain and production staff. I did in our daily tier meetings. Hey, here's the situation. Here's what we're up against. We need to isolate our switchboard engineers to focus on these as priorities. Here's what it impacts for the rest of the team. And we will be tracking daily where we're at and how we're doing on progress. And that was the last piece, was just making visible the goals to everybody as well as the progress. And what we found was our switchboard engineers were doing a bang up job after I had that conversation with them, assigned a clear objective, allowed for some support and insulation from non-value add interrupters. They were hitting all of their marks on those milestones. And where they're at now is from 119 past due items, they're down to 26.
Mm,
And that all happened in the span of a month. So, and we've been communicating that again daily to everybody, both our front end team and the production staff, so that we all see how that's contributing and ultimately going to positively influence the team.
mm. No, that's an awesome answer, and it's awesome when you see the tangible results like that. So kind of building on that, moving into sort of a developmental and performance-based question. This is the last question I'll ask you here. Um, So, what's your philosophy on developing your team members' careers? You talked earlier about how you sort of take an approach where if you didn't show up to work one day, your team would still be able to function. And as a follow-up, how do you recognize and reward strong performance?
Sure. So, in my opinion, the bigger the role, the more responsibility and oversight you have to different departments, um, uh, different organizations within your purview.
Hmm.
Um, that organizational capability piece becomes more and more of your focal point. It's to me, it's pivotably important that you put the right people in the right places to succeed, and you work on giving them the tools to succeed through framework, through the right motivation and understanding of how they're contributing, and allow them both the space, the time, and the resources or support to be able to succeed on their own. So when it comes to that organizational capability piece, for me, that's a primary focus when it comes to the leadership side. The way I set that up is I have monthly one-on-one conversations with each of my direct reports, and we break down those conversations by um, first off, how's your role going? Right? You talk to me first. And I let them have a platform to speak with me candidly. I make sure to stay approachable so that if there's any issues or interrupters in between those monthly one-on-ones, they always feel comfortable being able to come to me as a safety net, right? Or as somebody that can help support or give them guidance, feedback, or the right tools to be successful.
I see. No, that's a great answer, and certainly can attest to those approaches when you were my direct manager several years ago. So it's great to see that you're still employing those tactics between roles. Well, Kyle, listen, I really appreciate you getting on here to let me interview you for this assignment. Thank you for the insightful responses, and I really appreciate the time.
Of course, Sam. Take care. Always good talking with you, man.